this is Student Speak Up. Today we're looking at the question that sounds simple. Do public and private schools actually offer the same experiences and opportunities?
We asked 77 random students at Venice if they thought public and private schools were basically the same. All 77 said no. Not a single, yeah, they're equal.
So clearly, people feel a gap. We want to talk about what the gap actually looks like. Funding, class sizes, teachers, food, diversity, course options, sports, college counseling, all of it.
We'll start zoomed out with a college comparison. University of Chicago versus UCLA. Then zoom into something closer to home. Venice High versus Harvard Westlake, one of the biggest private schools in LA.
Not to say one is good or one is bad, but to be honest about how different they are.
Okay, let's start with college because it shows the same pattern you see in K through 12. Take University of Chicago, a private school, and UCLA, a big public school.
UChicago has a student-faculty ratio of about 5-1. That means, on average, 5 students per professor. A lot of small, discussion-style classes, and more direct contact with faculty.
UCLA, as a huge public research university, is closer to 18 or 19-1. You still have incredible professors, but intro classes can be huge, and it's harder to get individual attention unless you really chase it. So if you just say both schools offer the same classes, majors, research, or degrees, that's technically true, but for day-to-day life, the experience is very different. It's different in how easy it is to ask questions, how fast someone notices when you're struggling, or whether your professor actually knows your name.
That's the key point. The category of opportunity is the same, college classes, office hours, research, but the scale and access to those opportunities are completely different.
Keep that in mind as we shrink this down to have a high school level, because the same patterns show up in public versus private there too. Let's talk specifics. Venice High School has about 2,200 students with a student-to-teacher ratio of around 22-1.
In Harvard Westlake, a private school in LA, it has around 1,620 students and a student ratio of 8-1, with typical class sizes around 16.
So just like UChicago versus UCLA, we're seeing the same pattern. Public is a large student body and has bigger ratios, and private schools are smaller student bodies with much lower ratios.
That ratio alone changes your daily experience. At Venice, a teacher might have 170 plus total students. At Harvard Westlake, a teacher has far fewer, which means more time per student by default.
Now funding. Harvard Westlake's tuition is over $50,000 a year per student, plus fees. Wow. Venice is a public school, free to attend, founded by district and state money.
When you multiply that tuition by 1,600 students, plus endowment and fundraising, you're talking about a very different financial reality than a big LAUSD high school trying to stretch state dollars over 2,000 kids.
More than 2,000 kids.
Yeah.
That money doesn't just float. It turns into newer buildings, new technology, more full-time counselors, more specialized staff, better maintained fields and facilities, funding for niche classes, small electives, and class trips.
Meanwhile, Venice has to balance basics. Enough teachers, enough sections of required classes, fixing things that break, and trying to run programs without charging students too much.
Both schools have great teachers, but again, the structure is different. At Harvard Westlake, a large share of teachers have advanced degrees, and the school advertises that as a selling point, along with smaller classes and an average of over 10 years of teaching experience.
Public schools like Venice usually require state credentials and often hire good teachers too, but they're dealing with higher loads, more standardized testing, pressure, and more variation in students' needs.
And when a teacher at a public school burns out or leaves mid-year, the replacement process can be slow, and classes feel that gap instantly. In a well-funded private school, it's usually easier to hire and retain. Even daily things like food can look different. At Venice, you've got district cafeteria food, often free or reduced price for a lot of students, which is important, but it's standardized and budget-driven.
Private schools like Harvard Westlake often have more flexibility and fancier options, better variety, and the ability to bring in in outside vendors or upgraded facilities when they want. That's not about luxury for its own sake. It's about what steady money allows you to do.
Same story with the campus. How fast broken things get fixed, how much green space there is, whether the right room, auditorium, and labs feel up to date, all of that is funded.
Here's where it gets interesting. Private is not automatically less diverse. Harvard Westlake actually reports about 2/3 of its students as students of color, and they pull kids from over 150 zip codes.
But that's racial and geographic diversity. Economically, it's still selective. You either pay over $50K a year or you qualify for financial aid. That creates a certain kind of peer group.
While Venice is a neighborhood public school in LUSD, it's diverse in different ways. More economic range, more students in special programs, more kids who are first gen, and more who rely on school for basic support.
That changes what you learn outside of class. In a public school, you're dealing every day with people from a wide range of life situations. You seek inequality up close. You see inequality up close. You see what it means when systems work or don't.
Harvard Westlake advertised 300 plus courses, over 100 clubs, a huge arts program, and lots of advanced electives and independent research options. That's a wide menu. You want to learn advanced Latin, research seminars, niche electives, multiple bands and orchestras, specialized arts, odds are they have it.
Yeah, Venice does offer APs, a school for advanced studies, magnet and dual language programs, and a bunch of sports and clubs. But the number of sections and the variety per category can't really match a private school floating on that same level of funding.
And even when Venice has great programs like a strong magnet or an SAS track, they're still operating inside a much larger school with bigger class sizes and logistical constraints.
Sports is another space where both schools look similar on paper. Football, basketball, volleyball, track, etc.
But with more money, private schools can hire more specialized coaches and fund travel and tournaments without asking every athlete for fundraising. Public school athletes often juggle older facilities, shared weight rooms, and budget limits. That doesn't mean they're worse teams, but they play under different conditions.
Then there's the big kicker for seniors, college counseling. At Venice, you might have counselors who are responsible for hundreds of students each. For our school, our counselors handle around 250 students each. They're juggling schedules, letters of recommendation, mental health crises, graduation requirements, and other college stuff.
At a school like Harvard Westlake, there are dedicated college counselors with smaller caseloads who start planning earlier, meet more often, and can give detailed feedback on applications and essays. The result: both Venice and Harvard Westlake offer college guidance, but the same amount of time, depth, and individual attention a typical student gets is very different.
If you only look at categories, classes, teachers, sports, clubs, counselors, public and private schools look similar.
But once you look inside those categories, student-teacher ratios, how much money each student represents, how many counselors there are, how big the classes are, how many course options actually fit into your schedule, it's obvious that they're not the same.
That's why all 77 out of 77 students we asked said that there's a difference between public and private school experiences. You don't need spreadsheets to feel that.
It doesn't mean public school is automatically worse or private school is automatically better. Public schools can give you resilience, independence, and exposure to the real world in ways private schools can't. Private schools can give you more time with teachers, more specialized classes, and more structured support.
But pretending they offer the same opportunities, that's just not accurate.
So, if you're comparing public and private schools, don't just ask, do you both offer the same APs? Do you guys offer the same sports? Ask, how many students are there per teacher? How many counselors are there? How much funding does this school get? What is the campus like, really?
Because that's where opportunity lives, in the details, not just in the labels.
This was Students Speak Up. Different system, different resources, different outcomes, and students see it clearly. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.